Hi and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave and this is episode 1185B and today's date is January 23rd, 2017 and the title of the episode is There is a war going on, but it's not between the U.S. and Russia. Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now, when Trump was running for office, he said he was going to discontinue Obamacare, and he's already started the process. He wrote an executive order to ease the pain of Obamacare, and he's actually giving the states a choice to keep Obamacare or to provide an alternative coverage while receiving the same subsidies from the federal government while they come up with their new health insurance plan. He's also easing the tax penalty and the forcing of individuals to take health care if they don't have it, because there's many people out there who are saying, I just can't afford it. You're forcing me to take something, and if I don't take it, I still have to lay out the penalty money. And he realizes that the people, well, they know that this is not a benefit. We discussed this many, many times before. And what we're seeing happen right now is that people are saying, okay, finally, I'm getting some relief from this. Now, WikiLeaks was out there, and they tweeted a request to worldwide hackers to release President Trump's tax returns after Counselor Kellyanne Conway said that Trump, well, he's not going to be releasing his tax returns. Now, on the campaign trail, during the debates, he did say that after his audit was finished, he was going to release his taxes. So already he's going back on his word. Now again, we need to look at what's really happening. Remember, it's the actions of the individuals, not what they say. So we're seeing the action already. We're seeing positive actions. We're seeing negative actions from the president so far. Remember, it's only a day or two here, but we're looking at what he is doing. Now, WikiLeaks is saying that the president, well, he should release them because this is comparable to Clinton's hiding her Goldman Sachs speech transcripts. Now, what's very interesting about all of this is that WikiLeaks later then tweeted out that WikiLeaks isn't working on hacking Trump's tax returns, claim it's a joke from a comedy show. We are working on encouraging whistleblowers. So we're getting two different messages that are happening right now. But we can see right now that if we go back to what Trump has said, he's not following through on what he said. Now, what's very interesting about all of this, the president isn't really required to show the tax returns. This all came about with Richard Nixon. Prior to Richard Nixon, they really didn't show their tax returns. And I think what happened since that period of time, since there was the Watergate scandal, that they wanted to show that the president was on the up and up. So one way to do this is to say, hey, look at my tax returns, I'm hiding nothing, which means absolutely nothing because people can start foundations, hide their money, launder money, and the private tax returns say nothing about that. But they use this as a propaganda stunt to make everyone feel comfortable about it. It's almost like going back to 1929 where they came up with the FDIC. Now, they actually did something. The government actually insured the accounts because they wanted people to put money back into the banks. But in 2008, when the banks were doing terribly, they came up with something called the stress test, which said, oh, look, don't worry about the banks. We got it covered. We're doing stress tests. And this is a bit of propaganda to make everyone feel that the banks are solid. And we can see that this was with what happened with Nixon with his tax returns, because all the other presidents following that period of time, they wanted everyone to feel comfortable about the president. So we can see what's going on right now is that Trump, realistically, he didn't show his tax returns. He never wanted to show it, and right now he's not showing it. We see Obama and his allies, well, they're working very hard to undermine Trump's national security team. We can see that all the people that he's appointed, they are blocking most of the people from being confirmed right now. And this looks like this is a plan from the Obama side to stop whatever is going on here. Now, Trump's Attorney General, Senator Sessions, well, he is really for the surveillance state. And what I'm looking at right now is that between Sessions and Pompeo, who's nominated to be the CIA director, it looks like the surveillance state, well, it's going to stay in place right now. And they're going to violate the Fourth Amendment. And they don't care. So in this regard, it looks like nothing has changed whatsoever. And it looks like they're more than happy to spy on Americans and violate the rights of the people. Because we discussed this before. Now, Senator Sessions, he opposed the USA Freedom Act and was an ardent supporter of the NSA's bulk collection program under Section 215 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. Despite consistent evidence that the program never discovered any type of terrorist plot, they were still for it. Why? Apparently it didn't work. They couldn't catch the Boston bombing. They couldn't catch the shootings in different areas. They couldn't catch anything. So actually, it doesn't work. And remember, the reason why they came up with the USA Freedom Act, again, when you look at these titles, it doesn't mean USA is free. Because every time they come up with the title, it means something completely opposite. The USA Freedom Act allowed corporations to take that information and siphon it to the government, and they were not liable if something should happen as they transferred it over to the government. So the government said, why should we collect our own information? Corporations are already doing it. Let's just take that information. And Obama decided to do this because the NSA got caught spying on the American people, and they said they were going to stop all of this. And really, what did they do? They did absolutely nothing. And we can see right now that Pompeo, Sessions, well, they have no problem spying on the American people whatsoever. Now, we know the elite, they are meeting in Davos, Switzerland, and we know that they're talking about their plans for the globalist world. And these individuals who are out there, these CEOs, well, it looks like they're out there saying, well, we can control Trump. There's no problem controlling him whatsoever. And we can see right now that their meeting that they're having out there, they're saying all different types of things. And we have many different CEOs out there. We have CEOs from China, here in the U.S., and we have Jamie Dimon, CEO of J.P. Morgan Chase & Company. And he says companies shouldn't sweat the president's one-liners and instead should focus on Trump's candidate nominees. I think that these very rational people will be very thoughtful when they go about their actual policies. And they're already saying and projecting that these individuals are going to do what they want. And it doesn't matter what Trump is saying and whatever his one-liners are, they don't really care. They believe that he is controlled, he is contained. And their plan is still going forward with their globalist policy. We see there's a new bill that is proposed, and this is coming from Representative Mike Rogers, and it's called the American Sovereignty Restoration Act of 2017. This is H.R. 193. It sounds fantastic. Again, whatever the title says, it's actually the opposite of what it really means. Now, what this bill is for, it seeks a complete U.S. withdrawal from the UN and the international body and remove the headquarters from New York. And that all participation be ceased with the World Health Organization as well. Rogers and other prominent Republicans have repeatedly voiced the idea that the U.S. taxpayer money should not go to an organization that does not promote U.S. interests. Well, we have to remember one thing. The U.S., within the UN, they have the majority vote compared to the rest of the countries except for Russia and China, and they really call the shots inside the UN. Let's not be fooled by this. Now, the bill was quietly introduced on January 3rd, and was passed on to the House Committee on Foreign Affairs. If approved, the bill would take 2 years to take effect. It would also repeal the United Nations participation of 1945, signed after World War II. Now, what's funny about this is that the bill to cut the funding was introduced shortly after the UNSC voted 14-0 to condemn the continued construction of illegal Israeli settlements. And it looks like Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is a little upset that the U.S. backstabbed him and declined to veto this vote, because in the past, we know that Israel depends on the U.S. to veto certain things. And it looks like they're pushing Congress, this is a foreign entity pushing Congress to do something for them. Now, Ukraine says that they stopped a plane that was destined to Iran, and they found missile components on board. Now, we know Ukraine is controlled by a puppet government which reports back to the United States. We know that Trump right now, well, he looks at Iran as an enemy. He's looking to put up a new missile shield system. He's looking to point missiles at Iran, even though the other ones are pointing to Russia now. He's looking to point them also at North Korea. And we can see that most likely that these elite, they're going to play on that. Remember, there's a war going on now. It's not between the United States and Russia or North Korea. The war is between the people of the United States, Trump, and the establishment, the elite, the central banks. Because they don't want people and Trump to join together and take a side. It's begun. It's spreading throughout the world. But there's a war going on now. And we'll have to see how this plays out, because we know the elite, they do not want to give up their power. That's the last thing they want to do. And if they feel threatened, like they do now, they will create an event. They will start a war. They don't really care. And if we notice that many of the people in Trump's cabinet, the appointees, well, a lot of them are neocons. A lot of them have the same agenda that's been there for a long time. Surveillance, war. So we're going to have to see how all this plays out. We see the new administration. Well, they were being asked questions about China and the South China Sea. And we see Sean Spicer. I think the U.S. is going to make sure that we protect our interests there. And we will make sure that China doesn't take over territory in the international waters in the South China Sea. So we can see that agenda is still moving forward. That hasn't changed. Maybe it will in the future, but right at this point, it has not. We see out in Libya, the neighbors around Libya, they're saying that they're not going to interfere in what is going on there, because we can see there's a huge war between all the different factions and the UN-backed government. The people are trying to establish a government, and the surrounding neighbors of Libya, they don't want to get involved right now. And they want them to decide who's going to be their government. And this comes a day after U.S. B-2s decided to bomb inside of Libya. And I know the corporate media is saying that they're hitting the Islamic State. Most likely, they are hitting those different factions that don't want the UN-backed government. And those factions that are a threat to the UN-backed government, that's who they are hitting. And most likely, it's civilians. It's probably women and children. But we can see right now there is a huge battle going on in all of these countries. In Yemen, in Sudan, in Iraq, in Libya, in Lebanon. And again, the U.S. is losing control in this area. Out in India, India is preparing to deploy 460 main battle tanks along its border with Pakistan. The Indian Army plans to deploy the newly ordered T-90 MS MBTs, and they're going to place it all along the border right now. Now, the move comes months after Pakistan threatened India with a nuclear attack. And we can see right now there's speculation that the move is part of India's unofficial cold start strategy. Now, India is denying this completely, but we can see right now that the elite, well, they're going to try to trigger some type of conflict someplace in the world. They don't care where it is. And we already know the corporate media is already laying it out that it's going to be in the Baltic states. But we can see that all countries right now are prepping for war. Now, the first day of Syria peace talks in Astana, well, that ended without a breakthrough whatsoever. And we can see the rebels, they backed out of direct talks because of the bombing inside of Damascus. And right now, the talks really haven't gone anywhere at all. We see Russia launch 6 long-range bombers. They've flown all the way from Russia to the Syrian governorate of Deir ez-Zor, and they hit their targets of the Islamic State there. They were the Tupolev Tu-22 M3 bombers, and they flew through Iranian and Iraqi airspace, bombed the area in Deir ez-Zor, and we can see right now they're continually hitting the Islamic State. Now, what's very interesting about all of this is that Russia is out there. The Russian Defense Ministry is saying that Russian warplanes have flown their first combat mission in Syria with the U.S.-led coalition aircraft. Now, the Pentagon is out there saying absolutely not. We are not working with them whatsoever. Now, there might have been a little bit of a confusion that happened here because we can see that they might have been talking about Turkey and their joint missions right now. But right now, we can see that I don't think that the U.S. is going to be flying missions with Russia because remember, the elite, the neocons, if the United States actually started flying missions with Russia, there goes the entire Russian aggression. There goes the cyber attack. Because how do you explain this? That we're flying missions with Russia, but they're attacking us? It makes no sense. So at this point, unless Trump can do something and work a miracle in this area where he gets the military to work together with Russia to get rid of the terrorists, well, we can see right now that no way is this the case where the U.S. is flying missions with Russia because we know the neocons, they want war. They don't want to work with Russia. They spend all this time demonizing Russia. We see the USS George H.W. Bush. Well, it has deployed to the Middle East right now. And we know all the aircraft carriers were called back. A lot of them were called back for maintenance, reloading, and now they're all being sent back out. But it was very unusual to have all the aircraft carriers coming back to the U.S. and having none of them out there. Because if you really think about what they've been telling us is that Russia's getting ready to attack, Russia's going to cyber attack, Russian aggression, and to recall your aircraft carriers, especially because of North Korea and other areas, it seemed kind of strange because the U.S. government at the time was telling us, you know, all these countries were ready to attack. That's why we have to protect ourselves. And it was a very strange period of time to recall all of these ships. So were they really going to attack? No. That's why they were able to recall them. And what we see right now is that the elite are not finished. They're going to be pushing their agenda. They're already calling out that this year, 2017, well, things aren't going to go well in the economy. Well, they're already telling us that things are going to go poorly because of Trump's policies, the Brexit, and if there's any other country that wants to leave. Now, of course, the central bankers are going to try to stop them because we already see Mario Draghi is saying, listen, you need to settle your bill first before you can leave the EU. So they already have a plan and they're using it to keep the EU together. The central banks around the world, they want to keep control of what's happening here. They don't want to lose control. They want to continue with their globalist agenda. And they're going to push this. They've worked very long and very hard to have this. And if anyone tries to stop them, like Trump, well, they're going to fight back. And this is something we need to watch as we move throughout this year because the economy is worse than ever. And the central bankers, they understand that this economy is being kept up because of what they've done. It's not because people are spending. It's not because we have an incredible number of jobs. It's not because we have incredible manufacturing. It's all because of the federal government just creating currency and just keeping the illusion alive. The illusion is the top layer, where you see the stock market and you hear all these ridiculous statistical numbers. Everything below that layer is a disaster. I mean, think about this for a second. In 2008, when the stock market was at 14,000 points and the subprime securities were at AAA, that was the top layer, telling you that everything was fine. Even the Fed came out and said, listen, everything's fine. It's contained. We're not looking to have any type of recession in the year that they told us that we had a recession. But what we're seeing right now, that's the top layer. But everything below that, things were falling apart rapidly. Traffic dried up to real estate. People were losing jobs. We're seeing the same thing now, but it's worse. Think about it. People were losing jobs. They were losing their homes. Things weren't going well, but stores, the retail was still strong. Today, well, we know that retail is a complete disaster. Housing is a disaster. And the unemployment numbers are completely fake. The GDP numbers are fake. And we know there's no one in the market for the stock market. This is all high-frequency trading and plunge protection team. This is the free money from the Fed. Interest rates are zero or in some areas negative. So right now we are worse off. And when that top layer of the illusion completely falls apart, you're going to see what's below it. And what's below it is that it's an economy that's completely imploding on itself. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.